look mental. I have one of those things here, makes it look like I have like a fake beauty spot, you know, very, very high royalty, 1600s, this kind of thing. Yeah. Hi everyone, welcome to the Yarnflakes Podcast, episode 25. My name is Audrey and this is a podcast about knitting, weaving and other kind of fiber crafts. Welcome, I hope you had a lovely week. I did. And yes, cut my hair. It's a bit shorter than what I wanted, but that means in a couple of weeks it's actually going to look good. So let's roll with it. Look like a mushroom. You can find timestamps in the description down below if you wish to jump to any section of the podcast, and you will also have links to everything that I talk about, as well as my social media where you can follow me if you want to, and my Etsy shop and where I sell handmade yarns. And yeah, a little heads up for this episode, I decided to be a little bit more thoughtful about the projects that I share in the different sections of the podcast. That is basically not bringing every week a project unless there's a specific amount of change on it. Meaning endless stockinette on a body of a sweater, not necessarily going to bring it every week and repeat myself. So yeah, just to be a little bit more, thoughtful and to actually show interesting things rather than blah 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 every week, all the same thing. I can already tell this is going to be a weird episode, and I have something I want to talk about towards the end that is going to make it even on the rambly side, but yeah, let's get on with it. I'm gonna start with some knitting, and I am going to talk about my peony top. Now, if I can actually untangle it. So this is the peony top by Verenacors, which is a linen tank top with the, oh my god, with the lace hem, at the bottom. And this is the back of it. And I am through the stockinette of the body, and I have started making the armholes shaping. So I bound off to the side, and then here I'm making a little curve. So yeah, I'm showing you the right side. Yeah. So this is work with 2 strands held double of Lino Nougat, which is 100% linen yarn that you can buy from Woolen Berlin, which is they have an online shop. I assume they ship worldwide since they shipped to me. So yes, I don't know if it's gonna be long enough. I made it longer than what the pattern says, but at some point I was afraid that I wasn't going to have enough yarn. I have 5 skein and I already went through 2 of them. So considering this is a back and I need to make the front, which is a little bit which is a little bit more narrow, I think it should be okay, but yeah, I will try to stretch it if it ends up being too cropped when I'm blocking it. But it still should be alright. It should hit my hips if I trust the schematic. And yeah, it's making like a really, really drapey fabric, and I love it. This is my first time knitting with linen, and I really, really like it. So much that I plan next year to make 2 t-shirts with linen as well. So like I said, I'm past the armhole, and the thing is, at this point, all the way, well, it's the back, but all the way up to the neck, I'm afraid it's gonna rely a little bit on row gauge. So I'm gonna have to keep track of how long it is, so I don't end up with, you know, a armhole that's like too tight, because my row gauge is never right. It's always way too tight. Does anyone actually get row gauge? I would like to know, because I never do. I usually don't care unless specifically the top of a sweater or t-shirt, it might rely on that. So in that case, my row gauge is very, very tight. I'm not getting up a needle size because I'm gonna get a fabric that's way too transparent. So yeah, basically there's a curve for the armholes, and then there's a bit of straight knitting. So I think, if I read the pattern correctly. No, you're still decreasing, I think. No, you're not. It's a straight. I will try to find a way to adjust the length if necessary. But then again, I hope it won't be necessary because I don't want to run out of yarn. But the color, I didn't even say. The color is grass green, and it's a little bit darker than what it's showing here on screen, but it's lovely and beautiful. I really want to have it done, but at the same time, the weather won't allow me to wear it. Unless, like they said, October and November are going to be a little bit warmer. Which would be nice, because, you know, we basically didn't have an autumn here, which bums me. Because when I started it, I said, I don't mind starting it in September because we usually have a warm autumn. Well, we don't. It's like it hurt me. And anyway, I'm not that pressed to finish it, but it's still gonna get done. I hope before the end of October. Unless I succumb to my castanitis. Yeah, we'll talk about that more in a bit. Yeah, the linen isn't too hard on my hands, and I really liked the fact that you can feel that it's a stronger, tougher yarn, that you're fitting it through your hands, and then the fabric you're creating is so drapey and has such a lovely movement. I found it really pleasant to experiment, so linen is definitely, it's going to be my summer fiber, because I like cotton. So yeah, the next project I want to share is one of the socks I was knitting as a sample from my hand-dyed yarn, and I have a finished tube. So the colorway was Weirdo on Maple Street, which is a Stranger Things reference. I started watching it again so that I am ready to start when the second season hits us. So I did a toe-up sock, 60 stitch, and I'm gonna do an afterthoughts heel. So if you remember, I had three hand-dyed yarns for fall, and so I have 3 socks. So I'm gonna make all the tubes and then make the heels. And I used a cream as a contrast color for the cuff, and I'm gonna do that for the heel as well. I don't know, I thought having something clear would be unexpected and fun and kind of light it up, you know. Even though it's supposed to be like a spooky fall colorway, but for the cuff I did a 3x1 rib, and this is why I don't like toe-up socks. I managed to get used to shaping the toe, and I don't find it that feely anymore. I actually enjoy it, maybe more than starting a cuff when I knit cuff down. However, this is a simple stretchy bind off, so it's the one where you knit 2 stitches and then you knit them together, and then you knit one, knit them together, etc. And I've already used it on socks and on other projects, and it looked good, but what the heck happened here? Maybe it's because it's a 3x1 rib. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. But I like 3x1 for ankle socks because it makes a smoother finish to rely on my ankle. But yeah, smoother nothing. That looks awful. Yeah, I have tried so far. So Jenn is surprisingly stretchy bind off. I don't like it. I hate working it, and it looks just as bad as that. This is a simple stretchy bind off. I started by really liking it, but now I'm thinking, maybe not for socks. So I plan on trying the interlock. Is it how it's called? Interlock bind off. It's by the same Jenny who made the Jenny surprisingly stretchy bind off, I think, or it's another Jenny, but it's called the interlock stretchy bind off. I don't remember. It's a sort of a sewn bind off, and then there's Elizabeth Zimmerman's sewn bind off that I haven't tried either. No, I shouldn't do that because it makes the hair is gonna be distracting until it's here, and it's going to be like I want it. Anyway, bind off for rib, for cuffs. If you have favorites, and so yeah, like I said, I'm gonna try the interlock and Elizabeth Zimmerman sewn bind off, and yeah, I hope either one of those is going to look better than that. Because if not, it's definitely gonna be a bummer for me to knit 2-up socks. It's not so much of a problem when it's an actual normal length sock, because if that's on my calf, that's not an issue. But this is going to sit on my ankle, and it's going to be really obvious. I think it's because of the 3x1 rib, right? That it's making this really obvious outwards leaning bind off. Well, I'm gonna try with the other socks to make just a 2x2 rib and see if that makes a difference. I'm not gonna rip this one out though, because I'm way too lazy to do that. I placed a little marker approximately where I should go and put out the heel. I placed the marker when I knit tubes for Afterthoughts heel. I placed the marker not to know the position of the heel, but to know the edge, so to say, like the edge stitches. I put it around, you can't see, I put it around 2 stitches, so I know that between these 2 stitches is the middle of my sock, so I just have to pick up 30, and then it's going to be, you know, it's going to lay flat with the toe and not something weird like this. So yeah, that's why I place markers. I haven't done much progress on the other socks. I will, because I kind of want to get rid of them, because it's a lot of little projects that are a bit bothering me. So I think I'm gonna get on with it this week, and hopefully finish 1 or 2 pairs. The next project that I am going to talk about is a half object, and it's something new that you haven't seen. And it's mittens. Oh my god, they look so bright. They're kind of bright, not like this. Those are mittens for my boyfriend because his hands are cold. I followed a free pattern on Ravelry which is called Fingerless Gloves for Dan, because I wanted basic numbers for finger weight mittens, and he absolutely wanted fingers, so I didn't want to improvise it, even though I remembered that like almost 10 years ago maybe, I actually knit gloves in fingering weight for myself without a pattern. I remember I completely winged it, and I had to start over, like, I don't remember how many times, because I kept having issues, you know, I kept discovering that it was making holes to the corner, so I should pick up stitches between the fingers. and I kept trying the size. I was like, oh no, this is too tight, this is too loose. So I kept doing the fingers over and over again, and I ended up making a functioning pair. So yeah, it was back when I knitted without thinking that I should just look for patterns and follow them rather than trying to invent things on my own. So I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to follow pattern. So that's why I looked for a fingerless mittens pattern, and here they are. So I didn't follow them completely because the pattern has some sort of a cluster rib that I don't like, and I don't think my boyfriend would have liked either. So I just did a 2x2 rib, actually a 2x3 somewhere because the cast on is uneven. And then I knit like a good 4 or 5 centimeters extra. This is not in the pattern. The pattern has you make the rib and then start the Sauvabelin and just too short for men's mittens. Then I did the Sauvabelin, which is pretty neat. It's only yarn overs. You yarn over to increase, and it's made a nice increase line without holes, so I'm quite impressed with that. And then the other things that I changed was that I knit my thing longer. In the pattern she says like the pinky is 4 rounds, and then 6, 10 and 4, and that was way too short. You know, if I'm going through the trouble of making fingers, there's no point in then stopping here. I want the warmth to go up there, and I think my boyfriend will agree with me. Yeah, what did I want to say? The yarn I used is Lakeside Yarns, which is a knitted dye from Germany, and it's in the late summer colorway. I think I will link her shop in the description as usual, and I really like how it knitted up. It's lovely and colorful without being inappropriate for a man. I think it's still a colorful accessory. I wanted to say something else with the pattern. Yes, I'm a bit confused by the size of the finger. Like, I understand that you need less stitches for your pinky. I have very long and thin fingers, so I'm not a good example. But I find the pinky really tight, whereas really, especially the ring finger, could use less stitches. So if I were to do it again, and I mean to do one pair completely again, because I want the pair to match, even though it's not going to be visible, but in my mind it would annoy me so much knowing that one hand has 12 stitches on the pinky and the other one has 14. Just, yeah, I couldn't live with that. Have issues. So yeah, if I were to do them again, and I might, you know, even to make full gloves for me, maybe, though I prefer mittens, because sure, if you have a glove, you have your fingers, but you're still pretty handicapped with them. Like, you can't do anything, you can't fiddle, not only with your phone, but I don't know if it's me that's especially clumsy. I am very clumsy. But yeah, I can't do anything with gloves on my hands. I can't grab things properly anyway. So, any better than I would if I had just a normal mitten. So, since I prefer knitted mittens, I'm just gonna knit myself mittens, because, yeah. I'm going off topic a lot. So yeah, if I were to make them again, I would definitely transfer a couple of stitches from the ring finger to the pinky. I think it's gonna be okay. My boyfriend has slightly bigger hands than me, And on me I have these, which makes it not super practical because there's a tiny bit extra fabric all around for me. So for him it should stretched and be better fitting, but I'm afraid about the pinky. So I stretched it while blocking. And how do you block fingers? Is there a tool? I'm pretty sure there's like a shaped hand that you can block things on. That's not what I did. I took lipstick and nail polish round tubes that were approximately the same size and good enough so that the fabric will be stretched. And I stuffed them in the fingers so that it would be stretched and dried like that. That was funny. I'm sure a lot of people do that, but I was looking at it, I was like, okay, I want to stretch it while blocking to get a little bit more room as much as possible. And how do I do it? Like, I need a round thing, and I ended up putting lipstick and nail polish. It worked. And see, this is the same bind off done with my ugly sock earlier. And sure, you can see it, but it's not as bad. And I mean, it looks okay on gloves. It looks good, but it's definitely not flaring out as much. So, yes, obviously the fingers aren't the same length. I know that might be bothering for some, but again, like, all of this would be cold if I did everything the same length. So no. And if you get in a fist, it looks like they're together, so it's good. So yeah, I can't wait to send them to him when I will have knit the second one and see how they fit. And I hope they will fit, because it was quick and fun to knit, so it was alright, but I don't want to do 4 of them. The last thing I want to show you is not a project per se. You know how I keep saying that I want to cast on a ton of sweaters? I really do. I have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 sweaters that I have the yarn for. Well, I have more sweater quantities that I have the yarn on and I want to make. But these are the 5 that I really want to do this winter. 5 sweaters in the winter, seriously, Audrey. But I really want to try it. I knit rather fast, so it is possible if I stop wandering around and cutting my hair. And yes, I do have Christmas knitting to do, so I don't know about those 5 sweaters. But anyway, I want to make them. I'm a bit frustrated with my repetitive projects at the moment. So what do? I swatched so that I would feel like I am ready, or more ready to make them. I am going to run you through those swatch and talk about the patterns in question. The first swatch that I did, I already mentioned the project to you. It's for the Susu sweater by Nora Gore. Gore. I heard someone say it, that is how you should say it, Gore. And I mean, so much for French not pronouncing every letter. Popping a picture here, it's a Susu sweater, it's beautiful, it's oversized, it's moss stitch and cable, and it has a really nice shape to put on over jeans and dresses and things. And so I want to use Drops Lima for this sweater, which is 65% wool, 35% alpaca blend, and the wool alpaca range of drops I love. I really, really like it. It's soft, but it still feels woolly. It has a good stitch definition. It's drapey. I like the color range. It's not as extended as I wish. It's lacking beautiful greens, I think. But it has more brights than deep neutrals. And as much as I love crazy colors from time to time, for those kind of garments, I really want wearable neutrals. So yeah, the swatch is moss stitch. I like moss stitch. I really like moss stitch. So yeah, you can see that it's making this really nice texture. And it's nice. For all the swatches that I did, I'm on gauge for what the pattern says. So I'm like, yay. Lucky. I used the needle that were in from the pattern and I cut gauge. Or if I'm like off by 1 stitches, because I didn't stretch them. So sometimes I'm off by 1 stitches, but I can fiddle with it when I will be blocking the sweater. And most of the sweaters are oversized anyway. They're all not oversized, like some are oversized and some have positive ease. So it's not like I need to be that precise. Don't do like me. You need to be precise, but I don't care. I mean, I swatched. I did 5 swatches in 2 days, and if you remember from my previous episodes, I always said that I don't swatch when I make sweaters. When I make fingering weight stockinette sweaters, I don't swatch because why would I? But this time, since it involves shaping and some stitch patterns, like cables, I prefer to swatch, and it was fun. It kept me satisfied, even though I'm not able to cast on the sweaters, but right away, not able. I said like I could if I wanted to, but I don't want to now. So yeah, I had fun making swatches. I know, right? Weird. But anyway. So yeah, it's drapey, but still not super... It's not running away from you, which is good because I feel like the sweater needs to be quite heavy and have a good structure. And yeah, so the color I'm using from Drops Lima is 0619. So it's the beige. It's a mixed heathered color, and it's the beige one, not the light, the simple beige one. And yeah, it's pretty accurate. The second swatch I made is also in moss stitch, but it's in a different yarn, so it's gonna be interesting comparing the two. The project for this is actually a poncho. It's the Saunders poncho by the Sweater Collective. I think actually another one of the sweaters I'm going to make is by her. So it's Jessica Gore. And she released this poncho a little less than a month ago, I think. And I like ponchos. I'm a poncho girl, so of course I had to knit one at some point, and she came out with this one, and yes. It's knit in a pure alpaca wool, so I chose to knit it with Drops Puna. Yeah, I attached the labels of the yarn to my swatches so that I would remember what they are, and then I took notes on the stitches and everything. So it's Drops Puna, which is 100% alpaca DK weight. I didn't say Lima is also a DK weight. So yeah, it's pure alpaca, and I choose the light grey color. And this is moss stitch again. And I actually cast on the same number of stitches for those two, except for the light grey one. I swatched it on 3.5 millimeter, which is what the pattern calls for, and Lima is on 4mm needle. So, and you can see how much more drapey and slippery the alpaca is. It's like it's really going everywhere. It's really soft and it's really nice. I really like alpaca. I would wear alpaca everywhere all the time. And yeah, interesting how the mustache in alpaca is visible, but it's not as defined as the one which has a majority of wool in it. It gives a different vibe to it. It's a little bit more because it has more halo as well, you can see. So yeah, it really shows how well you must choose your fiber for different projects, and especially garments. You don't really choose alpaca for a sweater that you want to be fitted. Basically, alpaca will not have a shape. It will, and with gravity, it will. If you make a garment, it's going to be heavy. With gravity, it's just going to. It's never going to be fitted. It's a really bad idea to knit a fitted sweater in alpaca, I think. Some people like it. I understand why, because it's soft. It works for color work. Some of them have a good stitch definition like this one, but I wouldn't do it. So a poncho that needs to be super drapey, yes. A fitted sweater, not so much. However, this, you feel it's not just wool. You feel the softness and drapiness and a little halo of alpaca, but since it's still 65% wool, it's springier. Because, you know, if I stretch it, whoop, it goes back. And if I stretch this one, easy, it's like, poof. It's not as springy. The next swatch that I made is, again, drops Lima. So, alpaca, blah, blah, blah. And this is for the Sauvabelin, I suppose, or Sauvabelin. I don't know how you're supposed to say it. Sweater, which is in woods. Can you see it? Can you see it? I'm gonna talk about it later. Which is in woods, which is a knitting publication by Making Stories. And so it's Jessica Gore again. It's a sweater collective. Am I correct? Checking. Yes. So, another pattern by Jessica Gore, the Sauvabelin sweater, is a cabled sweater. And it's beautiful. Ever since the girls from Making Stories started sharing pictures of this sweater, I'm like, okay, I want to make it. Where can I make it? When? Please, come faster. So, yes, this is the medium grey mixed heather shade. 9015, and the swatch calls for in the round. The swatch also said to swatch in the cable pattern, but I'm making a swatch. I'm not gonna make two swatches. I mean, one is good enough. So it's in the round, so that's why there's a little frizzle here. If you've never made a swatch in the round, what you do is, rather than making a proper tube and wasting yarn and time, you knit, then you slide your stitches to the needle and you let the yarn run to the back, then you knit and you go like that. And so you end up with just yarn going like this, and then you cut it and it's here. And so that's stockinette, that's on point as well. And yeah, again, funny how it's the same yarn. One is stockinette, one is moss stitch. You can see that moss stitch gives a little bit more structure to the yarn because see, I'm holding practically the same. Yeah, and this one is flipping, this one is not. really drapey, really nice. This sweater is gonna have a little bit of puzzly V's. I think I'm gonna have to knit the second size, just because I don't want it too tight. And they say if you're in between sizes, and I'm always between sizes. I'm one of those person that is 36, almost 34 European size on top. I think that's a UK 4 or 6, I'm not sure. And I'm 38-40 with my hips, so that's like an 8-10. Basically, I have 2 to 3 size difference between the top of my body and the bottom of my body, so it's a little bit... You can imagine when I try to buy jumpsuits or dresses or fitted dresses, how it goes. I'm gonna do the last of the swatches with drops. This is Drops Alaska, and it's a bouquet weight. Iron bouquet. It has 70 meters to 50 grams. The recommended needle is 5, and I swatched this on 6.5 millimeter needles, which is what the pattern's called for. The pattern is the Ginsberg cardigan by Nora Gore again. It's a Brooklyn tweed pattern. I think it just I saw it appear on Ravelry not so long ago, and yes. And again, of course, I picked the dark green color because the sample in the pattern is dark green. So it's like this really massive rectangular shaped cardigan with like a cable and texture pattern. And I swatched in flat stockinette. And I got Beige. So yeah, this is on 6.5, which I was afraid was going to be a little bit too big and the fabric will be sheer, but it's not. Plus there's actually little stockinette in the actual pattern, so it's mostly textured. So yes, I actually had to buy needles for this because I didn't have. I had up until 5.5, and I needed a 6 and a 6.5 for the main fabric, so I had to order needles and wait. I think I'm gonna cast this one first, you know, as soon as I get rid of some small projects, and maybe do some progress on my Marius cardigan, because it's bulky, so it's gonna go faster, right? Even if it's big and oversized, it's still gonna go faster. I mean, I read the pattern and it says like knit 15 rows and then the back is done. So yes, it's the dark olive. No, it's just olive, because I believe it says olive and then light olive. It's the dark green color and it's really nice. This is 100% wool, so I feel the Alaska is lesser quality than all the other drops yarn that I've just mentioned. Yes, I had a knot. I picked the ball with a knot. I mean, if I have a knot for my swatch and I don't have a knot in the other 15 balls that I got, I'm good. Yeah, it's still soft and it's gonna make a sturdy cardigan, and it's pure wool. I know it's going to hold its shape and still be fluid enough. So I'll see. It will be my first time using it. And the last swatch that I did with Holst Supersoft, and it's my first time working with it, and whoa, I love it. I was a bit unsure if I would love it or not, because I'm not really sensitive to wool. I mean, people say this is scratchy, but if that's scratchy to you, then you probably don't stand wool at all unless it's merino. Because yes, it's soft. It was pleasant to knit with, even though, you know, Holst Supersoft still is not a washed wool. It still has like some oil from spinning in it, so it's a bit dry, but it was still nice to knit with. It's not as harsh as linen, and when you wash it, it just blooms and it's so soft. And I mean, this is good. This is very good for color work, and I feel like it can also have a decent stitch definition, even though I would prefer the blend that has some silk in it if I am to make a cabled sweater, which I have a sweater in mind, which is from the newest issue of Laine magazine. I don't have the magazine yet. Oh, I pre-ordered it, I'm waiting for it, but there's a sweater in it with cables that I think I'm going to do with Holst tides, so it's the silk version. But this is just the pure wool, Holst Supersoft. It's super soft, and I mean, it's so affordable. I'm gonna make the Whinfell sweater, which is again a pattern that is in woods, which is a colorwork yoke with a lovely I-cord neck. And yeah, so I swatched in the round for it, stockinette again. I used 3.5 millimeter, and when you look at the yarn, it looks really fine. So you're like, 3.5, maybe it's gonna be too big. But no, it's good. And I mean, for color work, it's gonna be perfect. This is Nougat, it's light gray. And let me actually grab my other two colors. So yeah, this is going to, I got it in a 200 gram cake. And this is 1,100 meters. So there's a sweater in there. Just saying. There's a sweater in there for 16 euros. And it's a wool, good quality wool. I mean, this is soft. I don't know why people say it's not. It is. It is. I mean, for me, scratchy is letlopi. Letlopi is scratchy. It hurts my hands. I like it as a hat. I wouldn't do mittens with it. I wouldn't do a sweater with it because it's not cold enough here that any kind of sweater will not touch my skin. Like, I'm not gonna have a long sleeve high neck shirt under my sweater to protect me from the sheepy, scratchy letlopi. Letlopi is my scratchy. If you ever felt letlopi, you can see, for me, this is scratchy. Anything smaller than that is heaven in comparison. So you can kind of judge when I'm saying something is soft and something isn't. And so this is going to be the body, and this is going to be my contrast. Ooh, my contrast color for the yoke, and they do not look like this. This is more coral. This is more like a coral red, soft red. It's not as scratchy, and this is a plum, and they're not as vibrant, but okay, I guess. So yeah, this is going to be my Whinfell sweater from Woods. So yeah, that was long. These were all my 5 swatches for my upcoming sweaters for this winter. Yeah, I realized this is not my last knitting thing. I made a pumpkin. I've watched the Charm of It podcast. Eva, I love her podcast. It's one of my favorite. You always learn something. And she made pumpkins, and I found that was cute. So I made it this morning, waiting for daylight to grace us with its presence, because it was like pitch black until 10. So I made a pumpkin. I've used, the pattern is from KnitPicks, it's a free pattern, and it's called Spice and Clove pumpkin thing. The spice is a knitted one, and then the clove is a crocheted one, and I wanted to knitted one. And it's super easy. You make a ball, and then you run a thread to tight it and make those little ridges. And then for the stem, the pattern says to knit in the round stockinette, and 6 stitches on DP ends in a round. Like, no. So I made a knit cord. This is KnitPicks Palette in the rust, and this is some sock yarn I dyed. I find it cute. I like it. I like my pumpkin. I don't know if I'm gonna make more. I kind of want to make a white one, maybe slightly bigger. I did it in an hour. What's it? I don't know if any cute. I like it. This is it for the knitting segment of this podcast, and I have some weaving to share with you because I finished the autumn wall hanging that I started a little while ago. When I showed it to you, I only had that band here. So I'm not going to run you through the yarns I used. If you want to see that, you can check back 2 episodes ago. You don't even have to watch in the description. Some are hand dyed. This is Woolen Boons. Voila. So I did this messy bump of olive roving thing. I really didn't follow any kind of pattern. I just tried to make it so that the mustard tobacco warp would show in some places when I thought that it looked nice. And then I was a bit unsure what to do, so I did a mess. And it's growing on me. I actually like it. I thought it looked wonky, but I actually think it's cool. I almost wanted to make loops, with the burgundy one, for example. I wanted to make loops, but I thought there was enough texture madness going on with this bulky roving spot. So I just made a mix of different cream yarns, my mustard, the burgundy, and then here I don't know, I hooked yarn and I made a knot, and I thought that balanced everything, because if this wasn't here, then it would look really, really wonky to me. So this kind of evens it and makes it kind of boho vibe thing. I like it. It's growing on me. Yeah. It's a weirdo. I'm leaving it on my wall to kind of get used to it. Gonna leave it at the back here. Oh, I should have done that from the start. Yeah, I should totally have let it here from the beginning of the episode. Oh well. I have a little bit of dream knitting, so to say, and it's gonna be all about woods. So, if you don't know what Making Stories is, Making Stories is the knitting publication company of Verena Kors, which is the wool club everywhere, which is a knitwear designer, and Hannelisa Haferkamp. I hope my pronunciation wasn't that bad. Never did in German. Hannelisa, which has the Hannah on the Road podcast on YouTube and makes gorgeous project bags and is in general an everything boss. So yeah, those two ladies wanted to create something that was celebrating European yarns and minimalistic design in cool nude colors and this vibe of thing. And so they did a crowdfunding back in February, March for their first book, which is Woods, and I backed it. So they just got it out of the printer and they shipped it, and I got it on Saturday. It's Monday today, and I am amazed. It's a beautiful book. I keep stroking it. It's a beautiful book. The pictures in it are glorious. The articles are thoughtful and inspiring. This is the Whinfell sweaters. There's a few articles about sustainability in knitting, and there's portraits of designers and of the yarn companies that are used in the project. There's articles on sock construction and sweater design. I've read it all, and yeah, it's really inspiring and encourages you to be more thoughtful with the projects that you knit, the yarn that you use, and in general how you manage a thoughtful wardrobe in your life. And so there's 11 patterns total, and I like all of them. I knew there were 2 that from the start, when they started sharing the patterns that were going to be included in Woods, I knew from the start that I wanted to do the Sauvabelin sweater, which is here, which is this cable pattern I told you about, and the Whinfell sweater, which is a color work that I just showed you. Reading it now, I also want to make the dress that the model is wearing here. I also want to make it. I also want to make the vest. There's a vest. I also like the scarf. I like everything. I like the patterns are at the end, and I put post-its with the yarns I could probably use and in what colors I was picturing it so far. Yeah, there's a lot of sweaters, a lot of garments, a couple of mittens, sock. There's a hat by Becky Sorensen, which is soprano knits. I really like this book. I am super pleased that I backed the crowdfunding. They did an amazing job, and the patterns selection is on point, and I for sure will get their other publications. They are working on a spring collection coming next year, and on a sock collection, like a digital sock ebook sort of thing, publication coming at the beginning of next year as well. I find that this is something important and something extremely well made. So if you didn't pre-order it yet, they said that regular pre-orders should be up today, so Monday 2 October. You should be able to pre-order it to get it, and I really recommend that you do, because not only from a pattern point of view are the project gorgeous, the whole making of the book and the interviews and the articles are something that every knitter should read, be it you're European or not. Of course, the yarns that they used is deeply rooted in the European fiber history, but I think, like, there is an article on the wool industry in Australia, which is extremely interesting, and I'm sure everyone can learn from reading about all the different beautiful breeds of sheep that we have, and yeah, basically encourage people to be more specific, not necessarily look down on other kind of things, but more knowing about the range of possibilities that there is, and about what each of these possibility means. It's gonna be a long episode, and I'm not done, because now I have to rant. Not really ranting, because I don't like doing rants. It kind of feels like preaching in a video form. But I want to open a discussion about paying for knitting patterns in general. And I'm not gonna put names on things. If you follow the podcasting community and people on Instagram, you might recognize some examples, but I just want to talk in general. I'm not here to put fuel on fires that are already extinguished. I want to open a discussion about paying for knitting patterns. People complain that they find some patterns too expensive, and they do it when the pricing is actually not unreasonable. I've seen people say that $8 for a lacy pie shawl is too much. I mean, to each his own. So I'm not talking about the people that prefer to knit from their own minds. Some barely knit with patterns because they want to adjust the sizing to basically for them crafting is designing at the same time. So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the odd reactions that some designers get from people that want to knit their pattern but for free, and that complain quite loudly about having to pay for it. I mean, you don't want to pay a pattern? You want to save to buy some yarn? Well, then just don't buy it. I'm talking about it because I've seen on Instagram that some people have been complaining to a designer because she released the pattern with a stitch that she didn't invent. And I mean, she never said that she invented the stitch. And they didn't want to pay for it because the stitch wasn't brand new, completely out of her mind. I'm not getting a pizza and telling the guy, well, you didn't invent pizza, so I'm not paying for it. Lawyers didn't make the law. Accountants certainly didn't make math. I think a good analogy is teaching. Everybody can agree that teaching is a real job, but they're only transmitting knowledge. Why should we pay them? The specific problem with designing is that it's a craft that's accessible to everybody. There are resources online that allows you to knit for free. You can learn, you can crochet, you can knit, you can weave, you can do anything almost for free, excluding the cost of materials, of course. You can learn things that were invented hundreds of years ago without paying for that knowledge. So why should you? Well, you see a pattern. Can you make it on your own? If you think you shouldn't have to pay for a pattern, well, don't pay for it. Do the same project without it. Yeah, most of the time there's more to a pattern than the stitch. There's math, and a lot of makers know that you need to adjust something to the garment or the accessory that you're making. You need to take into consideration your yarn weight. You need to make it look good and do a hell of a ton of math to make it work. If you know how to knit or crochet, you know that. So why is that reaction happening? I think it's something that happens when people try to do things on their own. I mean, self-publishing. It's viewed as not serious. Knitting is a hobby, so you shouldn't charge for it. It's not a real job to be a knitting designer. But it wouldn't cross your mind to think the same thing about something that is in a magazine. A magazine legitimates the pattern, makes it serious, makes it real. So again, it's the problem of something that's available through the internet mostly, that's not valid. It's like TV entertainment, no matter how crappy it is, it's always going to be real thing and real job, and people are paid for it and it's totally fine. Whereas YouTube entertainment is, it's just some kid playing video games in their room, It's not a real job, it's not a real thing. Oh, they shouldn't be paid for this. So when you self-publish a pattern on Ravelry, you don't have the approval of an old industry to make you legitimate. And that's no matter who you are, because in my example, the design in question, he's published in magazines and for a long time, so she should have the authority to make and sell patterns however she pleases. And yet some people think she doesn't. I understand that sometimes it's scary to buy patterns from a stranger. You don't know if it's going to be good. If you're honest though, you often have guarantees looking at the person's social media, if they're actively present online and they have a community. I mean, you can see when something is not serious, it's pretty visible. And I can tell you that actually some of the patterns that I have bought from yarn companies or from magazines or official companies were actually harder to read than some self-published patterns. So if what bugs you is a biased opinion on creativity, well, first you kind of need your culture checked, because nothing comes magically from God's inspiration and is brand new into the world. Nothing. And second, just do it yourself. I think that a knitting pattern is overpriced and doesn't require a skill set that makes it worth of retribution for the designer. Well, you don't have to buy it. If you think it's not worth paying for, it kind of means you can do it on your own, so don't pay for it. I mean, there's a lot of things where I think, I don't always want to pay for sushi because it's kind of pricey, so sometimes I still want sushi, so either I don't get sushi or I do them myself. I really want sushi right now, can you tell? Yeah, if you don't want to pay for a pattern because you think you shouldn't, well, don't. Do the thing yourself if you can. If you can't, maybe you have to think that, oh yeah, that's why you have to pay for it. And I mean, don't assault someone because of some yarn on a needle or on a hook. Why? Why would you do that? Yeah, to sum it up, I think it's similar to a lot of negativity online, and it comes from people acting like things that don't like are forced upon themselves. They're not. And I'm not talking about trolls, that are just here to be rude. I mean, some of these people must think that they're in their rights and they have an actual belief behind it, and they're doing it not to be, like some of them are doing it to be rude and to assault someone. But some are doing it because they think they have the right to. And I don't understand that. I mean, you buy bread, you can make bread of your own. Your baker didn't invent bread. I think the resentment is faulty. And yeah, I just wish people wouldn't act like things that they don't like are imposed to them, and so that they have to be aggressive towards other people. I don't know if I made myself very clear in that segment. I'll try to edit it so that makes sense. If you have thoughts about it, I'd love to hear them. The comment section is here. And yeah, that's the end. I have to go and make food because I'm late. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I hope that you are doing well. And I wish you a happy day, night, and week. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.